The Phillies offense has been staggeringly bad over the last couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about it next right here on Philly Central. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Philly Central. Tyler Zulli here. And if you know me, you know that the way that I like to go about my business is very prepared, very methodical, and we will talk about the numbers throughout this video. But every once in a while, sometimes you just have to riff. Sometimes you just have to come on the air, hit record, and see what happens. And that's kind of where we're at with this Phillies team at this point. Now, I'm going to make this very clear right off the rip. I'm not that concerned about the record itself. Yes, it's not a strong record. Yes, it's one of the worst records that they've had through 21 starts in, almost 25 years. But 8-13 is not unsurmountable. They're 5 games under 500. You'd like to be in a better spot, of course, but 5 games under 500 in the middle of April is pretty easily erasable. You have a good May, and all of a sudden you're back to 500. You have a good June, and now you're 3 or 4 games over 500. The number itself really is not that bad. There's still 141 more games to be played. The bigger concern that I have with this team, and what I am significantly more mad about heading into today, is that this is a fundamentally flawed offense. And I'm not sure if the argument that, well, it's the same team, it has been for years, is true, because they've won 90-plus games each of the last 3 seasons. They've been to the postseason each of the last 4 seasons. And I know it's reared its ugly head each of the same way, or the same way each of the last 3 years, specifically against the Diamondbacks, the Mets, and the Dodgers. But I think over the course of 162, this is still, or has been in the past, still a good offense. But at this point right now, through the first 21 games, my biggest concern is the fundamentally flawed way that the Phillies offense is approaching things. Now, let's take a look. This is where we will take a look at the offensive numbers so far. Let's take a look at the numbers for this team. In total, as an offense, you can see it there. They're hitting just 222. That's 25th best across Major League Baseball. And the other numbers really don't get much better. A 367 slug, that's in the bottom 10. A 669 OPS, also in the bottom 10. And then, of course, the one that matters probably the most is the amount of runs that they've scored, because you can't win games if you don't score runs. They've only scored 75 runs this year. That's tied for 27th best across all of Major League Baseball. But it dives even a little bit deeper than just 75 runs. 12 times this year already, the Phillies have scored 3 runs or less in a game. They're 2-10 in those 12 games. They've won a couple of low-scoring games. A 2-1 win against the Rockies stands out in my mind. But they are just 2-10 in games in which they've scored 3 or less runs. And that's not a surprise. Winning baseball games is difficult as it is. Doing it with 3 runs or fewer becomes exceptionally harder. So 10 of their 13 losses this year so far have come when they have scored 3 or fewer runs. And you've seen it a couple times over this past weekend against the Braves. And you saw it several times already this year. And it's a big reason as to why the biggest number that is jumping out to you so far this year is that the Phillies have a minus 38 run differential. They've had a couple of games already that have been extremely lopsided, where they've given up double-digit runs and scored very few, and they are now minus 38 in the run differential department. That is dead last across all of Major League Baseball. It is easy to see why, through the first 21 games, the Phillies are 5 games under 500. It's because their offense isn't producing. They're not scoring enough runs. And in the games that they are pitching well, they've had a couple of, clunkers so far. Taijuan Walker, Jesus Luzardo, they've struggled in starts this year so far. In the games that they are pitching well, the Christopher Sanchez starts, the Andrew Painter starts, a couple of Aaron Nola starts, they're not scoring enough runs. So that's kind of been the 100 level thought of this team, is that they're simply not scoring enough runs. It's been pretty well documented, too, that the Phillies have struggled significantly against left-handed pitching. It's been that way pretty much the entirety of the season. It's really been that way against left-handed starters, and it happened again this weekend against the Braves. They struggled against Reynaldo Lopez. They only picked up 4 hits in that game, 3 of which came off the bat of Bryce Harper, a lefty himself. The righties who had success against Reynaldo Lopez in the past struggled against him in that one, picking up just 1 hit. And then again on Saturday, they face Chris Sale, and their only run that they score comes off the bat of rookie Felix Reyes in his first ever at bat. He hits a home run, opposite field home run against Chris Sale. That's the only offense that they produce. So once again, they were not particularly strong against left-handed pitching. You take a look at some of the numbers here against the lefties so far this season, and it's not too hard to see why that they're not scoring a lot of runs and not winning a lot of baseball games. Against lefties, they are dead last in batting average, hitting 179 as a team. Their slug and their OPS are both second to last, a 279 slug, a 552 OPS, and they have only scored 16 runs this year against left-handed pitching. Only 4 teams have fewer runs scored against lefties than the Phillies do so far this season. And then the more telling number, you know that lefties are probably going to struggle a little bit against left-handed pitching. There's a reason Brandon Marsh doesn't play against lefties. There's a reason Bryson Stott doesn't play against lefties. Now, 2 of your lefties that you do expect to hit, Bryce Harper has been fairly successful against left-handed pitching so far this year. Kyle Schwarber has struggled more than he has in the last couple of seasons. He already has 17 strikeouts against left-handed pitching. But the bigger concern are the right-handed hitters, the guys that you expect to be the ones that carry your lineup against left-handed pitching. Trea Turner, Adolis Garcia, Alec Bohm, specifically to name a few. Now, Garcia has been fairly solid against left-handed pitching so far this year. He has 5 hits. He's been on base 9 times in 27 plate appearances. So his OBP against left-handed pitching is a solid enough 333. But it's the other 2 guys that are really, really struggling. Trea Turner specifically is 4 for 29 against left-handed pitching this year. He's hitting 138 with a 518 OPS. And then Alec Bohm is 3 for 25 himself. It's a 125 average. He has just 1 extra base hit against left-handed pitching. He has driven in 3 of the 16 runs, but he's really struggled against lefties as well. Now, the bigger concern with those 2 guys specifically is the fact that not only are they not hitting against lefties, they're not hitting the ball hard against lefties either. You could quantify this and say, well, they've hit the ball hard a couple of times, right on the nose, right at somebody. They're in a little bit of a bad luck phase. That's not to be true. Their hard hit percentages just aren't good against left-handed pitching this year. Trea Turner so far with a 25% hard hit rate against left-handed pitching. Amongst qualified right-handed hitters against lefties, he is tied for 81st in hard hit percentage against left-handed pitching. Alec Bohm is even worse. He's 92nd with a 22.7% hard hit percentage. To put that into perspective, there are right now 112 qualified right-handed hitters in Major League Baseball against left-handed pitching. Alec Bohm is 92nd. That means there are only 20 qualified hitters who have a lower hard hit percentage across all of Major League Baseball against left-handed pitching than Alec Bohm does. And then the final thing before we get to Trea Turner, because Trea Turner, I think we're going to kind of single out here a little bit on this episode. The last thing that the Phillies are really struggling to do this year so far is score runs late in the game. In the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings, kind of the ultimate innings, the final third, if you will, the Phillies once again struggling offensively. A 184 batting average in those 3 innings. There's only one team that's worse than them. They're 28th in slug. They're 28th in OPS. And amongst those 3 innings, the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning bands, if you will, they've scored the fewest runs in all of baseball. Just 15 runs in the final 3 innings of games so far this season. So let's think about last night's game against the Atlanta Braves as the kind of the reason as to why they have not scored against back ends of bullpens against, in the final 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. Now, they struggled against Dylan Lee. They struggled against Aaron Bummer. But it was the inning in the 9th against Raisel Iglesias that I think really was the kind of telling factor as to why the Phillies are struggling this year in the final third. Now, the inning started off well. It was a double by Bryson Stott. Eli White tried to make a diving play. He did not come up with it. Michael Harris slipped in the outfield, and Bryson Stott ended up with a leadoff double. So your tying run was at the plate with nobody out. Now, Rafael Marchand did not put together a significant at-bat, and he's really not put together significant at-bats pretty much the entirety of the season, but I'm not worried about that per se. So there's a runner on second with 1 out. You're down 2 runs in this game. Justin Crawford puts together an exceptional at-bat. He gets down early, looks a little bit lost against Raisel Iglesias, battles back, ends up spitting on a pitch that was a good down in the zone breaking ball or off-speed pitch, I should say. Spits on it, ends up walking to put runners on first and second, and Trea Turner comes up. Now, prerequisite to this, the ball that Kyle Schwarber hit to end the game, I'm not even really mad about. I think Kyle Schwarber tagged that ball, and Ronald Acuna Jr. just made a really nice play in right field. There's really not much you can do. You tip the cap to Acuna there. That's not my concern. Schwarber hit the ball hard and it just found glove. And that's how that game ended, and it sucks. But that's not my concern. The at-bat prior is really where my concern lies. And it comes with Trea Turner. And it's kind of emblematic of the season that Trea Turner has had so far this year. It's why Trea Turner is really not having nearly as much success as he did in 2025 when he won the National League batting title. So here's the walkthrough of this at-bat. And I understand that Raisel Iglesias has some really good stuff. That changeup is devastating, and it's really hard to pick up out of the hand. But you can see here's the pitch sequencing. None of these pitches are strikes. Trea Turner really didn't feel like he had an approach. The changeup there fooled him for the second strike, but it really felt like there was not a lot of an approach to that at bat there. With the runner on second, you being the tying run with just one out in the inning, knowing that Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper are coming up behind you, who both have swung the bat well in the game so far. I believe they had 5 hits combined heading into that final inning. And the approach just seemed lacking. There was not a thought process of trying to advance a runner. There was not a thought process of trying to, as they say, push the line forward, to, hand the baton to the next guy. I'm not asking for a 2-run home run to tie the game on the spot. I'm looking for quality at bats, and that certainly was not a quality at bat. And I think that kind of changed the tides a little bit, because even if Schwarber's ball gets caught by Acuna with 1 out, maybe there's runners on second and third, or maybe there's a bases loaded if Turner's able to draw a walk. That's a run. That's at least 1 run, and now you have runners on first and second per se with 2 outs, but it's 4-3 with Bryce Harper coming up, who had swung the bat exceptionally well throughout the day and really is starting to see the ball a lot better. That at bat by Trea Turner, in my opinion, was kind of emblematic of how this season has gone. The approach evaporated. It was see ball swing. And I think Raisel Iglesias did exactly what he was supposed to do, which was, I'm not going to throw you anything that you're going to be able to make good contact with. If you get yourself out, that's on you. And that's precisely what Trea Turner did. He took 1 pitch, swung at 3 of them, missed it, 2 of them early, and then missed the strikeout pitch late, fastball up in the zone. Just really was not a good approach or a good at bat by Trea Turner. And it kind of changed the outlook of that inning, as they had now runners on first and second, but 2 outs, and Schwarber's ball was caught to end the game. All of these things to say that the Phillies offense is really, really struggling right now. Again, the outlook of the season, 21 games in, I'm not necessarily worried about the record. 5 games under can be erased within a month or a month and a half span if you play some good baseball. But the problem is, fundamentally, this offense has struggled significantly, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of approach change to this point. Alec Boehm can't get out of his own way. Trea Turner has really struggled. Now, Bryce Harper is starting to swing the bat significantly better, as I think is Kyle Schwarber, which is important to this lineup, and you only go as they go. But the auxiliary guys, I shouldn't even say the auxiliary guys, the secondary guys, that tertiary group of Turner and Boehm and Garcia specifically, I think really need to kind of find their footing. Garcia has struggled recently as well. I believe he has 1 hit in his last 18 or 19 at-bats. And that group, that secondary group, is not providing you anything. And that's really kind of been how this season has gone so far. Now, there's plenty of time. There's 141 games left, but this offense has really, really struggled. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Should there be a lineup change? Should they try to tinker with the lineup a little bit and figure things out? How does this team get out of the funk that they're on? And fundamentally speaking, what's the approach? How do you fix this? Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think so far through the first 21 games. And as always, if you wouldn't mind, hit that subscribe button on the way out. It takes just a second. We are 90 subscribers away from our April goal of 250. And of course, leave a like on this video if you wouldn't mind as well, to catch all of the latest action right here on Philly Central. We'll talk more about the team. We'll talk more about the progression of the offense throughout the remainder of the season. And we'll do it all right here on Philly Central.